of India had raised its stake in telecom service provider Vodafone Idea from 22.6% to 49% certainly raised more than a few eyebrows. This would mean that the promoters would have their holdings diluted, that is the Aditya Birla Group and Vodafone PLC, but they would still retain operational control of the company. Why did the government choose to move this way? And importantly, was there any outgo of taxpayer funds? Hello and welcome back to Business Matters at the Hindu with me, K. Bharat Kumar. Now here's why the Government of India gained more stake in telecom services providers Vodafone Idea, or VI as it is commonly known. The government converted debt that is owed to it by VI to the tune of about rupees 36,950 crore into equity. This is in order to give some breathing space to the telecom firm and to lessen its debt burden mildly. But here comes a question, why was there any debt to begin with? Historically, Indian telecom firms have had to pay dues to the Indian government on allocation of spectrum or in the form of AGR dues or adjusted gross revenue dues. VI too had payments coming up on spectrum allocation of spectrum that was done pre-2021 period, but those dues were coming up after a moratorium granted to it comes to an end in September 2025. Now, clearly, Vodafone Idea does not have enough funds to pay all its outstanding dues to the government. So why did the government choose to convert debt into equity? After all, if the government had let it stay as debt, then in case VI went into insolvency, then shareholders would get nothing. But those to whom it owed any dues, such as the government, would be able to salvage something from the proceeds. Of course, in both instances, when the dues owed to the government was converted into equity, there was no outgo of taxpayer funds. It is only conversion of one kind of financial instrument into another. One possibility as to why the government chose to increase its stake is that it may now want to sell off the company along with its stake, that is the government's stake, to some buyer with deep pockets. That's likely why it has converted debt to equity a second time, the first having taken place in 2023 when rupees 16,133 crore of debt was converted to equity at rupees 10 per share. An editorial in our sister publication Business Line notes that the value of the government holding after the first conversion into equity happened, the value of that holding has since declined 32%. So then this gives rise to the next question. Why would a debt to equity conversion now yield anything different from what we've seen in the past? Also, a buyer with deep pockets acting as white knight for VI and coming in to buy out the company seems like a long shot because after all those conversions of debt to equity, the outstanding dues for VI still stand at rupees 2.2 lakh crore. So without any clarity to the future of the company, a buyer is unlikely to come by. And without such clarity, should the government too be trying its utmost to save Vodafone Idea? Sure, if Vodafone Idea goes into insolvency, the market would be left with just two private sector players, namely Bharti Airtel and Reliance Jio, and BSNL, a government entity. So, a duopoly among private players is not desirable, but all the government's actions may not be enough to allow VI to regain health and offer intense competition and allow for a 3+1 marketplace that the government seems to want. Now, all of that was at a 30,000 foot level. Now, zoom in closer and review the price at which the shares were transferred to the government in the latest instance. It was rupees 10 per share. So, why was this price chosen? Because VI's shares have been trading consistently lower than rupees 10 per share in the stock exchanges for the last several months. So, why was this price chosen and not the usually mandated volume-weighted 90-day average of the shares, which is significantly lower? Now, that's because the rules mandate that the shares cannot be transferred at a value less than par value, which is rupees 10 per share, and that is why rupees 10 was chosen. So, though the government followed the rules, commentators are pointing out that in this instance, the government likely overpaid for its stake. Now, here's the next question that comes up. Is the government doing this to eventually merge VI with its public sector firm, BSNL? In an article, our colleague Valerie of Business Line has quoted an analyst as saying that this is a possibility, but that nowhere in the world has there been a precedent of a merger of a private player with a government entity, and after which the merged entity has begun to do well. The analyst is quoted as saying that there have been examples of small-scale mergers, but not to this scale, where VI has about 230 million subscribers and BSNL has about 90 million. However, not everybody is uncomfortable with the deal. Some have actually cheered it too. City Research, in a note to its clients, has indicated that this development is a major display of support by the government for the telecom firm in a timely manner, and it would help ease cash flow requirements for VI over the next 3 years, and also go help it raise funds in the form of debt or loans from banks that it has been planning for a while. The brokerage added that the ongoing launch of 5G services in select cities should improve sentiment around the company and also help it arrest subscriber losses going forward. It had set a target price of Rs 12 per share. Given that before the debt conversion in the latest instance, shares of VI had traded in the region of Rs 6.80. City Research has estimated that easing of the debt burden will bring down cash flow requirements for VI to the tune of 40,000 crore over the next 3 years. What do you think? Should the government just ignore VI, focus on BSNL and make BSNL an able competitor to private sector players? Or do you think there's a good enough reason for the government to ensure that VI stays healthy and in the race?